Hello, and I'm Amanda Hawking, and welcome to Trill Week, where I celebrate all things relating to my 9-book Trill Saga. If you saw me talking online this week, I mentioned that I've been kind of like low energy and not doing as much posting and stuff for this as I had originally planned because I forgot to take one of my meds, and so I've been really sluggish and kind of like foggy and stuff lately. I'm starting to feel back to normal and stuff this week, but because of that, I'm going to extend Trill Week to next week too. So there's going to be more videos and more stuff going on next week. But I still wanted to do the question and answer this week, so I am. Earlier this week, I asked if you had any questions about the Complete Trylle Saga, and readers gave me a lot of questions, so I am excited to answer them in this video. I'm going to try to divide it into two parts. The first part will be like general questions with no spoilers, and then the second part is going to have spoilers, and I'm going to try to mention for like which series it's spoilers or it's for like all 9 books or whatever it is. But I'm going to try and warn you in the spoiler section, but just be aware that I'm going to try to split it up that way, because I know a lot of people haven't read the whole series. They've only read like either 1 or 2 of the trilogies, so but it is, and I'll explain all that too in just 1 second. So yeah, but just letting you guys know, that's how I'm going to mark it. So the first section that we're going into now, no spoilers. Far and away the biggest question that I saw was people asking, how are the 9 books connected? I didn't realize there were 9 books, and what's the deal with which characters are in which books? And so I'm just going to do a really quick explanation of all of that, because I think that will, help. So the first trilogy of, so it's the Trylle Saga is composed of 3 separate trilogies, but they all take place in the same world, and they've got the same characters in the different books, but to varying degrees. The first trilogy is Switch, Torn, and Ascend, and that one focuses on the Trill and the Vitra tribes, and Wendy is the main character. The second, and this series takes place in 2009. The second part of it is the Canon Chronicles, and this is set in 2014. And this one focuses on the Canon and the Skoyara tribes, and Bryn is the main character of Frostfire, Ice-Kissed, and Crystal Kingdom. And the final trilogy is set in 2019, and that is called the Aamti Origins, and it focuses on the Aamti and another secret. And that is the Lost City, the Morning Flower, and the Ever After, and that follows Ula. But all 9 books are in the same universe. Wendy and some of the other characters are featured in all 9 books. So the characters from the Trill are featured in all the books that come after, and Bryn and some of her friends are featured in all the books that come after too. So like if you, I don't know, it's hard for me to talk about it without giving away too many spoilers and stuff like that, but if you really liked either of the first 2 trilogies, I highly recommend reading the whole thing, because especially the last 3 books, they really, I think Bryn and Wendy have large parts in the last 3 books, and a lot of stuff happens in there. I don't want to give away any spoilers for people who haven't read it. But so yeah, but Wendy is not the main character in this, although there are some special treats in the 3rd book. But they're still in it, you know what I mean? I just gave each trilogy a separate POV character, and then there's lots of crossover characters. There's a lot of characters that are featured prominently in all the 9 books, and so you really get to see what goes on and happens in their life. So yeah. Yeah, another question that I got a lot of was, where did you get the ideas for the story? Where does the inspiration come from? It's based on Scandinavian folklore, and I really tried to focus in specifically on Swedish, so that's the most common thread you'll see through it, but it's in general Scandinavian folklore about trolls. When I first read about changelings, and the idea is that the trolls have to look like humans, otherwise they wouldn't be able to switch their children at birth, and they did that so their children could survive and get all the, stuff that they had in houses, because these were, I don't know, forest dwelling people, and they didn't have the other accommodations. It's based on like weird old mythologies, I guess, and that was the original story for it, and it kind of it all grew from there. And I grew up in Minnesota, where Scandinavian heritage and Scandinavian folklore is a big part of Minnesotan culture, so that's part of it too. I think it was it made sense to me a bit that way. And that's why the books are set in Minnesota. Fjording is in Minnesota, and it was because I was driving through the bluffs of Winona, and they look so beautiful and so magical, and that was really I was really working on the idea of Switched in the troll world at that time. As people asked, how much should I plot out the series? And I when I finished the Trill series, so I had ideas for what I wanted to happen, and there were some things that, there's some big revelations in the third trilogy that I did know from the first trilogy. I just didn't know, like, how or when I would show them, or if I ever would. You know, it's just kind of one of those things, like, if the information comes out. But so there's some stuff about trolls and who they are and where they come from that I knew fairly early on within the first trilogy about that. I specifically wrote the first 3 books with Ember, Finn's younger sister, and I was thinking that she would be the main character of the next trilogy in the Trylle Saga. But then I didn't know, I felt trapped in writing her because she was Finn's sister. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I just felt boxed in weirdly, and so I decided not to do that. I wanted to do something a little different, and so then I went with Bryn. And then the character of Ula is introduced in Crystal Kingdom, and I introduced her in Crystal Kingdom with the idea that she would be the main character of the final trilogy, and she is. So that's kind of how it works. So she has a small part in Crystal Kingdom, but she's actually introduced there, and then the next series she kind of takes the lead. Another question I got was, how did I feel when I completed the saga? And it was I know when I finished Ascend, it was a different, like, I was in a different part of my life, and so I remember just feeling relief when I finished Ascend. I was really stressed, and I wasn't sure how people were going to take the ending. There were some choices that I made that I wasn't sure how readers would take. And it's hard for me to remember now because a lot of people like it, but it was actually pretty scandalous how the book ended at the time, like, and I kind of, like, locked it out. But I was looking through stuff this week, I was thinking about it and remembering how, like, how scary it was the way it ended. But so when it was finally out, and I felt relief. Crystal Kingdom, I was also going, Crystal Kingdom I wrote, it's relief. I guess it's usually relief when I'm finished, especially when I'm doing a trilogy, and I think, because all of these things, one thing for me too is all of the books end with a battle, and, or all of the trilogies end with, like, a big battle, and that's hard for me to write. I don't so, like, I think I was just relieved to be through it at the end. With The Ever After, that's the only book I've ever cried when I was writing it, and I cried when I finished it, because I do know, like, this is I think the end of my time in the world. There's some questions in here. Do I think I'll go back? I am not. I feel fairly certain that I'm not going to continue writing into the world in the future. Maybe, like, I might do, like, a short story, like, on an anniversary or something, but I don't think I'm going to write, like, another trilogy or anything like that within the saga. Some people ask about prequels, and I actually like the idea of some prequels, or there's some stuff that I would like to play around with if I could, but I don't know if I will. I'm not going to completely rule it out. I may someday write a prequel about, like, I would love to write a prequel story about Alora. I would love to write a prequel story about Bryn's parents. I would love to write a prequel story about Ula's parents. I mean, there's some good stuff that's I guess just their parents I'd like to write. So that is, maybe I would do that in the future. I don't know for sure though, honestly. And so there's not anything that I would get my hopes up or anything like that. The main reason I'm not going to continue in the world is because the world building, I feel like, it's starting to hamper my ability to write a thrilling story, because I got really into the world building in this world. I really love it, but because I've spent so much time in there, it's really in depth. I know the names of, like, all the royalty dating back to the very first Troll King. Like, I have enough information where I could write a history book about the troll tribes. And so it's hard for me though when I'm writing, because I want to put all this stuff in there, and then I think it can get crowded and cluttered with interesting tidbits that actually really slow the story down though, and make it, like, less exciting and less enjoyable to readers. So that's something that I don't know. I mean, I would definitely be interested, I guess, in writing a history book if these books, I mean, yeah, if my publisher ever, if a publisher ever lets me write a history book, like a really in-depth history book about the trolls, I would absolutely love to do that, and I've got enough information to do it. But I think that I would just get too bogged down, and I don't think I can write another narrative. I got questions like which character is my favorite, and which one of the leading ladies are my favorite. I would say that it's really hard for me to say, because I actually have, they all hold a special place in my heart for different reasons. Wendy, when I was publishing the books, And I was trying to find a publisher. People didn't want to publish it because they thought Wendy was too unlikable. And I did make her more likable. And I still get complaints that she's unlikable. But that was kind of the point, is she's this angry, confused troll, you know, forced into a box that she doesn't fit into. She's going to be angry. But so I love Wendy, and I'll always, you know, defend Wendy for that. And Bryn, I just love her so much because Bryn was a challenging character in a way, because I wanted to make someone who is different than me in so many ways. She's very physical. She acts first and thinks later, and I'm like the exact opposite. She can be impulsive, and she thinks she can solve everything with like brute force sometimes. And so I liked that about her, because I wanted to write someone just different. And I don't think she is. I tried to write her as not necessarily the most clever of my leads, and she's not. I deliberately actually tried to write her as the least clever, because I sometimes feel like there's only like one type of hero, and so for me, I wanted her to be like kind of like a dumb jock, and they kind of reference that a little bit in there, that trackers are considered like the dumb jocks of the troll world, and so that was kind of my idea with her, but that she has a really strong moral compass, and she has a really good heart and a really strong sense of loyalty. And I feel like those are more important characteristics than necessarily being the smartest person in the room. And so that's really what I wanted with her, is to just be, you know, good and strong. And she is. And Ula, I really loved, because she is physically the most strong out of the three characters, but she's also the one who is not interested in physicality at all. She's very much into books and languages. She's my first plus size heroine, and so you've got a plus size model on the cover, which was exciting. And I really like Ula. I think that out of the three leads, she's the one whose personality is closest to mine for sure. And so sometimes I think that that is one of the complaints about the third book, is that she's just kind of nice. I think that can be a complaint for me too, is that sometimes she's just nice and lacks conflict because of that. But I don't know, so they're different. I love all three of them in different ways, so I don't really know how to pick one. As for the men, I'll say, I don't know. I will say that, like, I definitely would have made the same choices that Wendy and Ula did, but I think I would have chose differently than Bryn did, but yeah, that's what I'll say. So I think I'll move on to those spoilery questions. So from here on out, just assume that there's going to be spoilers. I will try to tell you specifically for which series they are, but I also might forget to, so just be aware. I don't know, I'm going to do the best that I can. But so yeah, these will be spoilers. So yeah. Let's start with the questions from the first trilogy. I would say, like, and I do get this one a lot, and it's a total spoiler for the Trill, is why did Wendy end up with Loki and not Finn? And I've talked about it more extensively in other videos, so I'm just gonna, like, do a more abbreviated version for this, because it's already got other questions. But, Finn is a good guy, and he has important roles, but he wants to hold her back because he wants to protect her, and he doesn't fully respect her agency because of that, because he can be overprotective and overbearing, and he kind of needs to grow up a bit too and stop thinking just in terms of safety, I guess, you know. And Wendy wants to be someone who does the right thing, and she needs to do things that are risky and challenging and dangerous because her position demands it, because she has a responsibility to her people, and so she needs to do its best for them, which sometimes means putting herself in harm's way in various ways. And I think that Finn was going to always hold her back from that, and Loki is always going to push her forward, and he's always going to hold, you know, he's going to fight beside her instead of trying to stand in front of her, and that was really important for me. And then that's like on the specific role of the characters. And if you're talking like in a more general sense of archetypes and stories, I don't like the trope where, and I see it, I've read it all the time, I've read it in multiple books, and I don't want to knock the books, because a lot of times I still like the books and everything, but they'll have, you know, it'll be a love triangle, and there'll be two guys, and one guy is broody and pushing them away, and the other guy is nice and sweet, and like, I love you, and I want to make this work, and they always end up with the broody one. And I think that communication is such a key point in relationships. And so I don't think starting it off on brooding and ignoring someone's no you know, is it because Finn does say I don't want to be with you, or like because he likes her and he says that, but he's like, I don't want to be with you, and she doesn't respect that, and he doesn't respect her saying, you know, they're pushing each other. But Loki does, I think, to more of a degree. But anyway, that's kind of like, yeah, I want the girl to end up with the guy who says, I'm going to fight for you no matter what. And so that's why she ended up with Loki. Is Finn, every time he had the chance to fight for the relationship, he backed down every single time. And every time Loki had to, he stood up for it. My camera just cut out in the middle of my answer, so I don't really know. I don't know, it's really weird. I don't know why that happened, but yeah, I was just saying that every time that Finn always backed down from the relationship and Loki always stood up for it. So, yeah, that's why. And then there's a similar question here in so this will be for the Canon Chronicles. So spoilers for the Canon Chronicles if you have not read it. Why did Bryn end up with Ridley, and also why did Constantine have to die? Yeah, I would say it's a similar answer to what I said. Is that Ridley was very open about wanting to be with her from the beginning. Constantine was very tortured and on the run and stuff like that. I don't really like Constantine. And do I think that given enough time that they could have been a good couple together? I really do. And so yeah, I was definitely, I was conflicted. Because in my original concept of it, Constantine was going to be much more of a black and white character. Like in the very original concept before I started writing, I had thought that he would just be totally evil, you know, just no redeemable qualities. But that's just, I don't know, I think that's boring. So I wanted to write him more morally gray, and that started before they even got, I mean, when it started after I started, but before I got through the first draft. And yeah, so that was where that, and then I mean, he ends up being, you know, such a huge part of it and such a cool character. But his story is a redemption arc. He does some really messed up stuff, and he does have to pay for that. And yeah, he did it because he was manipulated, and he did it for love. But I think that by the time Bryn meets him, yeah, he's come to the point where he realized you can't just follow orders. You need to question the orders that you're given. And he has some really good points and really good insights on war. But he had to kind of like go through stuff and do stuff to realize that it was wrong. And Bryn never would have done that stuff. She couldn't have been manipulated like that, because she would have known. Like, it doesn't matter if someone loves you. You can't go around killing innocent people, you know? And so his story's a redemption arc, and they're really fun for me to write. They're really fun for people to watch. But I think that part of his redemption was giving him himself for love that was actually worth it, though, I guess. And yeah, that's why he died, I guess. I mean, I did really love him, and so I was sad about it too. He did get a question from someone said, since Sarah can't have more children, this is for, it will be kind of spoilery for Trill, but I don't know. Since Sarah, the Queen of the Vitra, can't have more children, who's going to take over the kingdom after she dies? Well, some of that is kind of sort of answered in the final trilogy, so I don't want to say too much because I don't know if you've read the final trilogy, so I don't want to spoil that part of it. But one of the things is I want to believe that the Trill Society is moving towards democracy the way that, you know, most royalty is has been in the 21st century and so on. So I think that they're going to be phasing out royalty. So that's kind of my idea, is my hope, and what I think the future is going to have more like prime minister kind of things, and so that it'll be an elected official, and then it won't matter, you know, that she can't have kids. So I'm gonna do a few more. I'm gonna do just a few more questions because this video is getting kind of long. I know I'm not gonna be able to get through all the questions. Maybe I'll do a second part next week, just because I'm not able to get through it. It's just getting long, and I don't want to, you know, forever. But so another question that I got. This is a huge spoiler for the Empty Origins, the final trilogy, The Lost City, Morning Flower, and stuff. So if you have not read these 3 books, I do not recommend listening to this part. I recommend you skipping ahead, and I'll tell you when the spoiler's over. So you can come back and talk then. But so here's the big spoiler. Bryn's death at the end of the Ever After was a really, really difficult decision. It was. I talked it over a lot. And I debated back and forth between going through it. I just knew that because it was this big battle, I wanted it to be this end of the world thing, that I knew that the characters needed to feel lost. And so I really wanted people to feel lost, because it was supposed to be this big, huge, they just barely survived, a dragon that ends the world, and I felt like if I didn't have some loss, it would feel underwhelming. So that, and I considered a bunch of different characters with that, but I kept coming back to Brynn because she made the most sense. She's that's exactly how she would want to die. I mean, she was dying fighting a dragon to save her friend's life and to save the kingdoms and the world. I mean, that's exactly who she was. It felt perfect, even though it felt tragic. And another thing is, and there's a lot of detail and thought that I put into her death and trying to figure it out, and I went over and over how I wanted to do it. Her final words were, I want to, I'm sorry, I can't be safe this time. And those are actually Constantine's final words to her, is when he puts her in, or some of the final words that he puts to her, he shoves her in the closet before Mina kills him, and he says, he says, sorry, White Rabbit, I want to be safe this time, and he pushes her in there and then locks it, and then, he dies. But because he was trying to protect her. And so, yeah, so I do like to think that her final thoughts are on him, and that when, she dies, they'll be reunited in, like, Valhalla. I mean, I assume they've got, like, Valhalla. I really didn't talk too much about religion in the books. Just because I didn't want to lean too heavy into the especially because I had characters, named Thor and Loki. I didn't want to lean too much into that mythology. But yeah, I mean, I guess I assume they'll go to, like, Valhalla or something. So yeah, I mean, so that was my way of kind of trying to make it a little less tragic. But it was hard. I mean, I cried writing it. I don't know. It's hard to know if you are doing the right thing by the character and by the books. I mean, it was something that I did consider a lot. I did not take it lightly, for sure. I think it's what she would do. I don't know. It's just it's what I think she would do. I mean, that's it, I guess. And I love her. I love her for it. But yeah, I mean, she's, like I said, she's one of my favorite characters. So it was hard for me. But yeah. One thing, I guess, about that, though, is some people then are upset and say, like, well, why would you do that? Like, it upends her whole story. And I don't, like, it negates her whole story. I don't feel like it does negate her whole story. I mean, I think that, I mean, I guess, I don't know, that part of it I don't like, because it's, things die, but it doesn't negate their life or what they did. And she did do so much with her life. I mean, she did, like, an insane amount of stuff with her life. And she was a total badass, but, war, that's why war is not always a good, I mean, that's why war, you have to be very cautious, because good people die. I mean, that was her story's main, the thesis of the middle trilogy, is that there's no such thing as a good war. There is sometimes a necessary war, but no war is good. Good people are going to die, and bad people are going to, like, profit from it. I mean, that's just how it's going to go every time. And so I did still want to kind of show that in this case, it is still a good war. I mean, this was a necessary war, but it's just never good, So, yeah. Anyway, end of spoiler. Now I'm going to be spoiler free for until the end. I think I'll just do, like, a quick little wrap. I know I have one other question I thought I was going to answer, but I don't remember it. Oh, this question, it's not a spoiler, and I was just going to answer this one last question. It says, why did you decide to call her Wendy? And then she's named after Wendy in Peter Pan. I actually, my Blood Approved series, which was the series I wrote before this, a lot of the characters too I named after, like, nursery rhymes, well, not nursery rhymes, but stories that I liked. There's a character named Peter after Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, that kind of thing. I wanted these are, like, really kind of, like, simple names, because I just read books where their characters have, like, really ridiculous names, but as I've written more books, I understand why people do that, because you run out of simple names, and then also a lot of names are taken for other properties, and I don't want to like have a character named, you know, the exact same as someone else, you know what I mean? So, but anyway, yeah, so Wendy was named after Peter Pan, and there was also a partial inspiration for Peter Pan in the books, and it's a little prevalent in the first trilogy. It is most prevalent in third trilogy. There's a lot of reference and allusions to Peter Pan in the original one, because I really wanted to go back to having, or in the on the final trilogy here. So there's a lot. Because I like the ideas of fairy tales and these books that I read when I was a kid, and I loved Peter Pan so much growing up, and so that was one of the inspirations for this too, the series, and just stuff that I really like excited me when I was younger, and I kind of put them together and added more romance and more battles. So that's basically where it comes from. So you see a lot of references to Jim Henson and Peter Pan and like Never-Ending Story and all that kind of thing. That's all. That's all in there. So I think that is all the questions I'm going to answer today. Like I said, I'll try and do another video probably next week. Because I'm extending this week, and I'm gonna do some more stuff next week, because I like I said, I just didn't get enough done this week. But fortunately it'll work out, because this video is pretty long, and I still have some more questions. But so in the meantime, if you have more questions, go ahead and comment below in this video and let me know what your questions are, if they were answered in this video, and I will try to answer them in the next one. But I'll be back next week with more Trill stuff, and I think it's gonna be a better week next week, and so I'm pretty excited about that, because I know that you guys are just so excited. I love the Trill Saga so much, and you guys love it so much, and so it's really fun to talk about it and engage in and do stuff with that. But until next time, stay safe, be kind, and happy reading. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe.